All right, everybody, welcome to episode 11 of the Business Blueprints. This week, I have somebody that I had a opportunity to work kind of against, but not against early on when he first got into real estate. But it's also somebody I just look up to just as a business person, as a father, as an individual, someone who came into real estate. So this week, we have Matt Simmons of Fifth Avenue Property Group.
Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on. So let's just dive into when we first I knew you whenever you first knew your gym. So I went to the gym a little bit whenever that was going on, and that was called
Fitness 247.
And that was located on 885 or close to
West Mifflin.
Yep. So I kind of met you then, and then when you jumped into real estate, we both were doing acquisitions and stuff at the same time. And I always tell everybody, like, I credit you for my ability of leveling me up at sales because, like, at that time, acquisitions and that kind of stuff wasn't like as big as it is now. So there was only like really four of us. I kind of thought that were like really doing numbers. Yeah. And I always like when I went on appointments, I would always make sure, like, I always thought you were the guy coming in after me. So I was like, I got to be better than Matt.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about the thing that stood out to me is about you is you are super disciplined in your fitness, your health, your willingness to get better as a person, business. Talk to me about leading up to when you got into wholesaling.
Yeah. So that wasn't always the case. When I owned the gym, I was just kind of going through the motions. It was a successful business, but it kind of succeeded despite me. I say that a lot. We were in a good location. We had a good model. We had a good price point. We had a lot of members, and we grew it, and it made a lot of money. But it wasn't because of anything I was doing, really. We had a good team. We had a good price point. But I just knew I was leaving a lot in the tank. There's times where you might be really struggling, but you feel like you're giving 110%. And there's other times where you feel like you might even be killing it, but you know damn well you could be doing more. And that's kind of where I was at. I think a lot of people saw me at the time. I had a good lifestyle. I had the money, and they thought I was quote unquote successful. Yeah. I was in my 40s at the time, early 40s and late 30s maybe. And things were going pretty well. But I knew when I laid my head down on my pillow at night, like, I was capable of a lot more. Sure. I wasn't giving it 110% in any arena. So that goes for my relationships, you name it. And then when I became a father, that was kind of eye-opening to where I was like, am I setting the right example here for my son? And I've gone on to have two more. And I just really felt like something was lacking. And that's when I started to pursue a second business. I started another company called Keystone Bath. Yep. Keystone Bath, we did like one-day bathroom remodeling, walk-in tubs, walk-in showers, stair lifts, and we just kind of caught a right niche in the market as things were taking off. Got a few contracts with the state, which made us attractive to a bigger outfit that was coming into the area. Sold that business, sold the gym, and was basically trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And like I said, I knew I was lacking in a lot of areas as a man, so I started reading. And up until that point, I hadn't read anything since I dropped out of college in 1995. So we're talking, 20 plus years, 30 years of just kind of going through the motions. And so when I started reading, it kind of started to open my eyes to the fact that, I was interested in real estate, but more importantly, I was just interested in learning more about personal development and improving as a man. And so I started down this path and this was kind of at my wife's encouragement, where she said, before you just jump into another business, because I had gone from vending, which I sold, to the gym, to the bathroom remodeling business, before you just jump into something else, take some time and figure out what it is you really want to do when you grow up. And at the time, I was watching a bunch of stuff on real estate. I was doing all this personal development, and I just came to the conclusion that real estate was the thing for me. And so I spent almost a year before I did anything. So literally, not too many people are in a financial situation where they could just take a year and listen to podcasts and read books. But that's legitimately what I did for a year, was work on personal development. And so it set me up for success in such a way, because as you know, when you first get started in this business, you're getting beat down constantly. And if you're not in a good mental state, you're going to break down. You're not going to succeed. And especially as an entrepreneur at the time, you know, I was doing the cold calling, I was door knocking, I was doing the marketing, I was doing the sales appointments, stuff that I don't have to do now, but I was doing it all. And because I was in such a good frame of mind, I was able to go from one failure to the next with the same enthusiasm that I started off with, which is what so many people lack. And so I think for a lot of young entrepreneurs, when you're trying to get your mind right and at the same time build a business, you get tripped up because when failure comes, you're not mentally able to roll with the punches. For me, I had that first part of my mind straightened out before I picked up a phone and started getting shit on by sellers and by everybody else so that I was mentally prepared for that and able to roll with it. So yeah, different guy from back then. And really, I had a huge advantage going into this business in that I was mentally raring to go. Couple that with in-home sales experience, some money to spend on marketing, and just having some basic business knowledge and being like a solid man at that at that stage of my life. So many guys in the business, I mean, like wannabe gangsters or just like wannabe entrepreneurs. It was an easy ascension early on for me because I was kind of poised for success when I came in.
For sure. It's funny that you mentioned your wife, and I met her at a few properties back in early on. She was just kind of doing some stuff. Sure. And I still bring this up all the time. And I remember when we were buying deals from you and stuff like that, and we would always never offer you what you should be offered, right? Yeah. We kind of bought early on. Sure. And I remember one time you called me, and and we just had a one-on-one conversation. And I'm just thinking about it even now. But I remember when your wife specifically said, we were asking for something off, and she said, you know what, we can take our kids to Disney for that. I think we were asking like $5,000 to $7,000 off on a deal, and she was like, why would we do that? That's like taking our kids to Disney. Yeah. It stuck with me, dude, all the way up until, because it's like you're devaluing your value. And it was a funny thing back then. And it switched the gears on the way I thought about a lot of things. It really did. Even the business that I'm in now, I'm like, well, why would I? Like, you know what I mean? So because back then, like, wholesaling wasn't what wholesaling is now. No. And you mentioned the wannabe gangster stuff and this and that. And it's kind of started to become sort of that in a sense. But, you know, because back then we weren't even wholesaling. It was just Muffy, you, one or other ones. And it wasn't really, it wasn't a thing. Yeah. And I kind of always said that. I was like, you're really the forefront of the father of like really pushing wholesaling on a level that was more than just ground level. Not one or two
reached out to a lot of guys in Pittsburgh when I started my business. And I said, I know you're doing flipping. I know you're doing buy and hold. I know you're doing whatever. But I'm doing all this research. And the model that seems to resonate with me the most is wholesaling because I can control the deal, which is what I want. And multiple big players in Pittsburgh, many of whom now wholesale, were like, it barely pays for our marketing, not worth it. The spreads aren't there in Pittsburgh, and it's because they weren't buying deep enough. And I was like, well, shit, I don't know, but I think there's something here. And so we started off, you know, like I said, I had some money, so I dropped some mail early on, did some door knocking on probates and tax delinquents and stuff, and just took off.
You've crushed the probate for such a long time.
Yeah, probate's been good
probate for such a long time.
Yeah,
yeah. It's, you know, again, I look at you and I look up to you in so many different ways because you play the game strategically, and I love that. Like, that's what I like about business. Those that are willing to move the pieces around, not just necessarily for the short term, but want to play the long term, knowing that this thing's going to evolve into something. And from an outsider looking in, at least, wholesaling paid for you to do a lot of things, but it also paid for you to be able to do other things. Sure. You know, so when I took my business and we branched out on it, I needed a cash flow business early on. So that was remodeling. So I needed that to get to the bigger grand scheme of the new construction, which brings in bigger amounts, but longer cash flow cycles. You know, so again, like, I looked at a lot of your people that were successful, people that were successful in the game, you know, and I looked at them, I'm like, all right. And you're right, because I think a lot of people now do the wholesaling for the cash flow side of their business, whether it's might not be generating the revenue that yours is, but it's definitely flowing into the rentals or their flips, pays for the overhead, pays for the marketing.
To me, I can't think of a greater, at least in terms of the real estate space, I can't think of a greater business in wholesaling. And I know people shit on it.
Oh, yeah.
And it does have a bad reputation. And many, many, many times it's well deserved. But it has evolved, at least our business at this point, where it's something I'm super proud of.
Oh, sure.
And there's many reasons. But number one, I didn't always do it right. Admittedly, there was a time when I started when I was the guy who was saying, I got to bring my contractors through, right? And then the 70-year-old lady pulls up in the white Lexus, and she's my contractor, and she's going to walk through and give me a price. I did all the stuff
We all
you're not
did.
supposed
I think
to
we
do.
all did early on. I did
Yeah.
too, because I was like, it was a confusing
I mean, you
thing.
can't tell these people
Yeah.
you're not buying it, right? No,
It's
you
very
can
confusing.
actually. It would go much better if you would. And so now we've since evolved where we're literally saying on an appointment nowadays, ma'am, my goal here, just so we're on the same page, is to sign this property with you for $100, and in a best case scenario, I'm going to sell it tomorrow for $125.
Yeah.
That's my goal. If you have an issue with that, I completely understand. Here's some other options we have. We can do this, we can do that, because we can list it. There's a lot of things we can do. But this is how our model works, and I completely understand if that doesn't work for you. And by the way, I need you to sign this paper that says that I told you that. We are not fucking
very
around.
unique.
Yeah, we are disclosing, disclose. When you get to a scale where you're on everyone's radar,
Yeah.
everybody wants to see you fall.
Oh, yeah.
You over disclose. We'll lose 3 to 4 deals a month.
Because everyone's talking shit on specifically just you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I represent what's wrong with whatever. And that's fine. So what we do now is we lose 3 or 4 deals a month, and some of them are big, and my reps are pissed because they're making a lot of money on these. But where we just have to tell the person, in selling to me, you're leaving $36,000 on the table. Here's a way you could go to get that money. 90% of the time, they're like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to do that. And I appreciate your honesty. But 10% of the time, they're like, 36, really? I thought maybe it was like 10. And they decide to go a different route. But the beauty of the wholesaling business is, A, the way it is now, at least if you're doing it right and you're doing it at scale, which, by the way, all the real players that are doing it at scale, they're covering their asses. Nobody, just given the regulation that we know is coming, nobody wants to be that guy or gal that's the first that gets pinched for.
And it's going to be big.
Oh, it's coming.
Yeah.
So the real players are over disclosing, and they're doing everything by the books. But the reason why I love wholesaling is I've heard people argue that flipping is better. I heard people argue that buy and holds are better. I've heard people argue that burr's better. There's a million different strategies. However, I can do all of that when I have the leads. If you tell me, hey, I'm going to take a student and I'm going to teach them how to do burrs because that's such a better strategy than what you're doing, you have to start over at 0 every month. Well, you take that student and you teach them the burr strategy. And I'll teach this student how to get in front of motivated sellers. And let's check back in 2 years and compare net worth. Your student will be at the mercy of my student and of the realtors and of referrals. And my student's top of the funnel will be overflowing with people that want to sell a valuable asset below market value. Why would you not start here and then learn how to do everything else? So we fell ass backwards into a portfolio that's now huge, but we didn't start off with that. We started off with learning how to get in front of motivated sellers, knowing that at some point we would be able to build our portfolio. And so that's what we've done.
No, it's been an amazing thing, and it's happened fast as fuck because, again, and I want to touch base on it. Do you think that you selling multiple businesses up front really helped you in terms of when you kind of understand a model, you can try to just implement a model?
Yeah.
Now, was it a big transition going from, and because I want to talk to people, a lot of people want to get in real estate. They find it sexy. They think it's this amazing thing. They're going to get super rich, super fast. Yeah. And I think that was the alluring thing about you because, again, if we don't want to throw out numbers, we don't have to. But your first year was big.
$1 million.
Yeah. Profit.
It was 1.2 in revenue and like an 80% profit. It was a one-man show.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
Which is what everyone kind of aspires to do, but no one really does. But that's what I was saying is, do you think what helped you was going through all the learning curves and the ass kickings on the first two businesses, learning the model, knowing you were going to run into pretty similar hurdles?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people nowadays, when they look at bigger businesses, are like, oh, you can't relate to me. I'm like, well, that's not true. Like, what, you have a communication problem, you have an operations problem, you have a cash flow problem. Every business has those. It's just what scale.
Yeah.
So do you think those businesses really helped you succeed fast?
Man, you know what they did was they told me what not to do.
For sure.
I mean, that first business with the gym, I mean, I was just a douche. I was tanning, I was lifting, I don't know, the business made money. But I had a lot of shit going on back then. But yeah, it just taught me what not to do. It taught me how not to behave. And it just taught me a lot of great lessons. The second business, though, I built to sell. I was looking to get my EBIT as high as I could because I knew I could sell it for a multiple. And that really set me up mentally to be in a position going into this where I was well poised. And there is enterprise value in wholesale businesses. A lot of people say now, well, the problem with that and the reason why it's not a real business is you can't sell it. It's not true. We have interest from buyers now that are looking to grow into other markets, and they're looking to just tap into existing companies.
Because you can do nationwide now.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to do nationwide and do, if I can do just over the phone in Kansas, I can grab 2% market share or whatever. I mean, when you're talking about gigantic numbers. I mean, when it starts to get into that respect. I mean, it's funny because, when you talk about control and you talk about all those other things, that's what we kind of did too. It was like, I knew in construction I needed to have control. So that's why we started an in-house team. I could be able to back my way into, certain aspects. I can control the construction side, which is the side for us that gets crazy. It's the side where the cost gets nuts. You start, you see it every day. People getting burned on contractors or everyone loses or yada, yada, yada. So that was kind of the same thing of why we did that early on too, was to maintain the control of the projects. I needed to secure that I was going to have profitable projects. And, it's hard to run a sub-based model when you're very early on because, you don't have that. It gives more credibility when you have the in-house team and things of that stuff. But, it's unique in the sense when you say that about what can you control, because you're right. It's not about the burr. It's about the quality of lead, and it's about how you handle a motivated seller. And that was always the thing.
Yeah, and I think people make the mistake of comparing the strategies. Wholesaling as a strategy does not compete with burr. Burr, you're keeping the property.
You're making money multiple times.
Yeah, there's no way you can compete with a burr on a wholesale deal where you're getting paid one time. However, if you're building a business, good luck building a fucking burr business. I don't even know if that is, how do you do that? Because how do you have any peace of mind on what your revenue is going to be next? I can tell you right now what my revenue will be in the second half of the year within a few percent. Now, the market may go up, it may go down, it may shift. We may have an exceptionally good couple quarters and exceptionally poor, but within a few percent. If I'm reliant on wholesalers, referrals, realtors, the MLS to find my next deal to burr, I'm screwed. I mean, I don't know how you can make financial decisions that way. If you can complete the burr, it's way better. And that's why we do burrs. But when you're in a situation where the market's hot and there's 10 offers, or you're in a situation where like now the rates are high and you got to buy it even deeper.
Makes burr real hard.
Real hard. Whereas with us, if we're getting, we're spending $1 million a year in marketing. If we're getting hundreds of leads every month, there's a couple in there. And so it just makes it possible.
Well, that's the power of it. When you're willing to sacrifice and spend the upfront money. And again, you didn't start off spending $1 million a year. I think that's what I was saying. I think we all started around the same price. Our cost per deal back then was $2,500, which has probably gone up since, I'm sure, and all that stuff. But again, that's the power when you have your own leads. You can pick and choose then your strategy. Because that's what I remember, and you talked about it a little bit just before, the options. Because you did lay out 3 options. Hey, here's your option A, B, C, and you kind of, pick which one works best for you. That was something you developed kind of early on too, which then everyone kind of started spidering into, with this seller finance.
Yeah, we started doing creative early on. We started doing retail, so we brought in relationships with agents.
And you still do. And you still keep that model.
Still do that quite a bit. You have to figure out of 10 So our KPIs would look like this. Out of 10 calls or 10 people that reach out to us, we're going to schedule about 5.5 in-person appointments. Of those 5.5 in-person appointments, we're going to close probably 2, maybe 1.75 of those, 25%, depending on the month, about 25%. So of those, that means that 3 or more don't fit our model. But these are still people that called in on a shitty 25-cent postcard. They're very motivated. That's a realtor's dream. It's somebody that has a $200,000 house that's willing to sell it for $190. That's a realtor's dream. Not $170 like I wanted or $160, but $190. You got to monetize those.
Absolutely.
And even if it's not big money for you, which it's not, we keep a 25% of the net commission that a realtor gets. So it's, by the time you boil it all down, it's not that much money. However, we've serviced another customer. So now we can go get a 5-star review. We can get a referral, and it's good karma. And it just feels like, okay, I came to these people for a solution to my real estate problem, and they found one. Maybe it's not the one that I thought I was going to get, but they gave me a solution. And it also gives your reps a ton of confidence. Now, it used to be when we were going into the house, 3 out of 10 times you're going to get somebody to say yes because the house is worth 100 and you're offering 40.
That's what we're
like
doing.
A fucking asshole, right? That's not the case anymore. Now you're going in, you are getting a signed contract. What's the contract? Is it going to be cash? Is it going to be 40 or 50? Is it going to be seller finance? Is it going to be sub 2? Is it going to be maybe retail? There's a million different ways you can go now. So the question just becomes for the reps. You're getting a signed contract. It's your job to go in there and figure out which one. Because they didn't call us just to kick tires, right? They called us because they want to sell a house. Of course, you still get some of that. But it's a different mindset going into the house. So the confidence is much higher. And you can walk away from that appointment saying, if I offered this person $40,000 for a house that's probably worth $70,000, along with offering them all these other options, and they said, no, I want the 40. And I said, okay, that represents a $20,000 you're leaving on the table. Sign here. And they say, okay, where do I sign? I'm good with that. And they're signing the disclosure. You can go home and sleep well at night. It used to be when we would do it, I would get home and I'd be like, well, I signed it for 40, but I think that guy thinks his house is only worth 50. And it's actually worth 70.
I hated it.
Horrible.
I hated it. Just to be upfront, I fucking hated it. I hated it. I couldn't do it. Like, it bothered, and it did. It fucking bothered me. It bothered me in the sense of I knew that we could be doing better. But it was for financial gain, and that was all that was looked at. Everybody trying to says, well, you help that person, they are in a situation. Yeah, I guess. That's the way you're justifying it in your head. But, I mean, ultimately,
you could have helped them a lot more.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, that's why now the closing percentages are low, but everyone knows if I'm choosing to do this, then I know damn well. Because the days of taking risks, and people still do it, believe me. But the days of taking risks and trying to tell somebody that their house is worth 60 when it's really worth 110, it's a ticking time bomb. It's only a matter of time before you're going to get caught. And again, for us, we're held to a little higher standard because we know we know the bullseye is on our back and people want to see us.
Well, because you've had your name kind of ripped off, you've had your business model taken, you've had your marketing, I've seen the evolution of it from behind the scenes. And, even whenever I parted from whenever we were doing that together, we reached out and we talked to the coffee shop about what direction I should go and yada, yada, yada. I mean, I don't call a lot of people for help, but man, you are someone that has been quite influential in my life, even in regards just to the small stuff. Maybe you didn't even know, but it's in the sense of how you, when people hear the $1 million a year in marketing, believe me, everybody, it didn't start there. It was, you knew how to fill the gaps and put your money into people, and that was your thing. I mean, you built a team quick. I mean, you filled the gaps, you knew the roles, you paid the marketing now. So marketing now, let's talk. First, I want to say EBITDA. I follow my EBITDA like crazy. That's one of the only
the
number.
number.
That's my high number that I look at every month. You know, and
that's the one that matters.
Most people don't know what that even remotely is.
Right.
But
I hear people talk about revenue.
Yeah, don't care.
All the time.
I don't care. We had that same conversation today. We had an owners meeting today, and I'm like, I don't need to build lavish, cool houses for Facebook.
Yeah.
I build ranches for people. They're profitable. They're easy. We have a great niche for retirees. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care about 50 million in revenue. I care about profitability and EBITDA. I care about return on my dollar.
Sure.
But so now return on your dollar. So I mean, $1 million a year in marketing. How do you focus on now? So what is it, branding for you, or is it direct, just for leads? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Because now your company's pretty big. So now there has to be an aspect of.
Yeah, we've grown. We do a little more branding, but the game is still.
Always leads.
It's always leads. I mean, everything is based on that funnel that you're well aware of, where we're trying to pour as much into the top of that funnel, knowing that very few are going to trickle out at the bottom. But it's just being diligent about your KPIs. So like I said, we know we get 100 leads. We're getting 55 appointments. We get 55 appointments. We sign this many contracts. Usually about 10 to 15% of those are going to cancel.
Yeah.
Sellers decide they don't want to do it. We misjudge the market and we have to go seek a reduction and they say no, whatever it may be. But 10 to 15%, which is respectable in the industry, they just don't work out. If someone's in a jam, we close on them because we very rarely can't find a way to monetize it some way or another. Sure. But so you're going to have a certain number that fall out. Then from there, you're going to have a certain number they're going to have the closings, and then you know what your average spread is on the deals, and you can pretty clearly see a return on your investment for marketing. But it's gotten to a point now where we have consultants, we have people. There's people way smarter than me. This business has far outgrown me. I don't have a college degree. I do have some business experience, but I'm just very limited, and that's why we brought my wife in. My wife has never gotten a B in any class. She was a nurse practitioner, and she was probably on her way to med school. And I'm like,
she's a savage, you can tell.
Yeah, I'm like, why don't you just be a CFO?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, okay. So she's super good with numbers. Because like at the gym, I would have a good month and like buy a Porsche.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like 6 months later, I'd be like, oh, fuck, we need treadmills.
Yeah.
Like I can't make payroll. It was January. Why were we so, January, New Year's resolutions, fuck. So it's like I was terrible. I was doing like bank balance accounting. She came in and got everything organized. And then we really went to another level when we hired our COO. He's a Carnegie Mellon guy. He had a property management company. He had a full construction company. He's built 20 to 30 homes himself. So he had all of those pieces in place.
Yeah.
And I actually went to him because I knew him from the gym. He's an early morning guy like me. And I'm like, I've been interviewing for COOs. And I'm like, these people, I'm paying them close to $250,000, and I just haven't met anyone that really blows me away. I'm like, you know what I need? I need someone like you. Like, if you know anybody else like you, that's the kind of guy that I need for this. And like 2 days go by, and he calls me. He's like, hey, man, I've been thinking about it. He's like, the biggest thing that limits me building my portfolio is lead flow. So if you can find a solution to that, I will find a way to be your COO. He came on board. He now runs my company, which also under that umbrella is the property management company. And now we have in-house construction. So now we have all three of those with a brokerage kind of floating around there as well. So now we have all that stuff in-house. And in turn, we're funneling him leads in the area he wants to buy, which is Washington County. And he's stacking his portfolio. It's such a win-win for us. And that leads me to something that I'm sure you've heard me discuss before. And that is the fact that the biggest reason we've been able to scale, the biggest reason we've been able to build the team you talked about, is we are overly generous when it comes to not just compensation, because I think we're fair there, but where we're overly generous is if you want a deal and you're one of our team members, you get first dibs. If you want to keep a property, we will find a way to make that work for you financially. If we need to lend you money, if we need to help with the construction, obviously we're going to manage it for you. You're not going to pay what our buyers would pay. And that's been huge for our team, because if you're on my team and you're a super, super savvy salesman and you say, well, shit, I could go over here and I could make 225, 250. But here I make pretty good money and I stacked 4 rentals last year. Well, what is that pharmaceutical company that you could go work for? Are they going to help facilitate your retirement? Like you might get a 401k, but that ain't worth
We
shit.
talked about that years ago.
So to me, you've got to be overly genius, overly generous, give people skin in the game.
Yep.
And it's in a sense, it's like golden handcuffs. Like why would they leave?
Yep.
And these aren't properties that are like shared in our LLC. I'm not giving them equity. No bullshit.
theirs.
It's your property. If you leave tomorrow, take it with you. And that to me builds a certain amount of camaraderie and a vibe within our team where if these people just feel like they're helping you get rich, they are not going to give it 110%. 100%. But when they see, okay, yeah, he kept 4 properties last month, but I kept one the month before, and I'm probably going to get one next month, they're on board. Huge difference.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, have you seen that getting kind of played around the industry?
I see it now.
Yeah,
I see it now.
You were the first person to absolutely do that. 100%.
Yeah.
You know, because that was, I mean, that would be me coming from an acquisitions person, 100% I'd value that.
Yeah.
You know, and then I thought even I was making money back then. I look at it now, I was like, man, I was so fucking underpaid.
Yeah, of course.
For the amount of shit I was doing, I was so underpaid.
Yeah.
But again, I got to learn a lot in that educational space too, you know, but that's 100% true because there's a lot of people, including myself now, like, yeah, I have the construction, but I don't have the lead flow.
Yeah.
You know, like I understand operations, but I also don't want to spend the 10 grand a month. And I also don't want to go on the appointments. I don't want to build that sector. So it's like, you know, for me, the way I look at rentals is different than I did before. Like I'd rather overpay for them a little bit, buy them as turnkey as possible.
Yep.
I don't want to do the construction outside of my construction business.
Yep.
And if they can cash flow a little bit, I'm just doing it for tax purposes and wealth building.
Yeah.
I don't need them to live.
Yeah.
So my motivation on them has changed too, where I'm like the one I bought off you in Baldwin, I didn't even look at it. I was like, listen, I'll just give you full ask.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but I learned that from back in the day. I'm like, listen, man, I'm not even going to approach him unless I'm paying at least what he's asking.
Yeah. And we're the same way with rentals at this point. I mean, honestly, the beauty of the rentals is that first year when I had a killer year, I didn't keep any rentals.
I didn't think you did.
Not a single one. And the second year I kept almost 40.
Yeah.
Because my accountant was like, dude, you're getting killed.
Yeah.
But the first year I just didn't know any better. But the second year, the third year, the fourth year, I mean, literally, what was it, 2019, whatever year it was, we had a killer year. And that was the year that, maybe it was 2020. That was the year that the stimulus came out. We got stimulus checks. My wife and I got stimulus checks. We got child health credit shit. These checks kept coming from the government. We're like, we qualify for all of this. And I'm calling my accountant. I'm like, why am I getting a stimmy check? He's like, you buy so many rentals that your income is so low.
Yeah.
So now we're buying rentals, to your point, for a different reason, and we can loosen the standards that we use.
That's kind of where I loosen the standard.
You have to.
So how many doors do you have now?
So right now, we just sold a portfolio. We sold a portfolio of 112 single-family homes.
Did you do a 1031?
No, actually, I didn't. I had a different investment earmarked for this that was outside of real estate. But these properties were kind of a headache for me. They were some of the ones I bought early on. But we still, despite that sale, we have about 220-ish, mostly single family. But we have some 6 units, and those are my smaller. Then I have 1 multifamily. But for the most part, we're still buying every month. I mean, I look at it at this point as a lot of these deals that we're looking at, they only make sense for me to buy as a rental. There's some where I'm like, I can't justify this number that this person needs in wholesaling. Yeah. There's just not enough margin there. But it's still a solid house.
Yep. Meets your standards, meets what you want.
And I no longer have to worry about it generating revenue this month. It makes sense.
That's where I'm at. Yeah. It's a different when you can play the game like that. It eases it up. You can buy kind of you can be a little more picky. You can, pick and choose a little bit. Yep. So the construction companies, how long that's newer, right?
That's new, but it's coming up on 18 months.
Okay.
So it's been a little while.
So that's mostly your property management stuff.
Property management, and he does, he's building a couple houses right now, but then additionally, do all of our flips, do all of our rentals, obviously our maintenance on our property management. One of the things that we've done a lot this year, because we haven't been able to buy as deep a discount, is we've had to go and add some value. We haven't been doing what I would call flips, but like wholesale type stuff, just carpet and paint enough to make it.
That was always what you liked.
Yeah, pass inspection. So now we'll buy a house for 100, we'll put in 15 to 20, and we'll sell it for 170. That's a great model for us. We'll net 30 grand after the cost of money and carrying costs, and that's a deal that I couldn't have wholesaled otherwise. So that's
are you funding the deal through your company and just kind of paying a return, or are you going to borrow money still?
We're still borrowing money.
Nice.
Yeah, I still use hard money everywhere I can. We got much better rates now. We were paying 15%.
I think we all were.
Multiple points for many, many years. We got better rates now, better terms. But we still use other people's money. To me, we underwrite it that way. If it doesn't pencil out with someone else's money, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if an opportunity comes and you need something for business and you got 200 grand out sitting on 30 grand profit, you're like, this doesn't make any sense.
And it is a mental block for me because my wife's like, why don't we just lend ourselves the money?
You've
already underwrote it. And for some reason, for me, it feels better just to use.
I agree with you. I'm the same way. I still do it. I could easily fund, some stuff. We're talking about doing a spec in Peters on some land. I'm like, I could fund. I'm like, why? What's the point? Like, if you underwrite it the way you're saying and the numbers carry out, like, what's the point? Let somebody else make some money on it too. You're going to make some money. And again, it's just like you said. I mean, you built your COO based upon a relationship. You were talking about it, and that probably, like you said, game changed you to a certain point.
Definitely. Yeah, because his knowledge from a business perspective is so far beyond mine in terms of scaling, in terms of processes. He's the kind of guy that'll come in and say, okay, this KPI is falling short. I'm going to spend the next 3 days diving into why our live answer is only 85%. Why are we not live answering 15% of calls when we have 3 people available to answer the phone? Well, to me, I would be like, oh shit, we're answering 8.5 out of 10 calls. That's pretty fucking good.
Sounds pretty good to me, yeah.
Yeah, like we're good. No. He wants to know why we're not answering the other 15. And he dives into it and he comes back to me 3 days later and he's like, hey, now we have a call queue. So if someone doesn't answer it live, it goes into a call queue and they hear this recording. And then reps can get it dinged and say, oh, there's a call on the call queue. Now everybody can jump it. We answer 100% of calls live.
Big difference.
And then you transition to, well, why are we only scheduling this percentage of calls to appointments? Well, we're overqualifying. Let's take a look at the lead sheet and what kind of questions we're asking them, because we're at a point now where we can sometimes pay up to 70, 80% of retail value if you're doing a novation, different from when we were doing it. And so now you might say, well, what do you need for your house? And they might say 150. You may look at the Zillow, and the Zillow may be 130, but the Zillow's not accurate. It's now worth 180, and we could probably get them down to 140, and all of a sudden that's a deal, whereas before we might not have scheduled that appointment.
You would have walked away from it.
He deep dives all of these KPIs, and you can see him check them off, and the funnel just keeps getting more and more efficient.
Which is very interesting because a lot of the guys in the construction world are fucking just scatterbrained, just like squirrel.
Yeah.
They're most, that's the biggest thing that, both of my partners were the hammer swingers, so I needed that option. I needed guys because for me, the thing that I think allowed us to grow quickly as we did is I never had to worry about construction ever. Yep. Unless it was a catastrophic fucking problem, it never really got back to me.
Right.
But I was allowed to maneuver on sales and start to build that and operations and work on, cash flow cycles and that.
People make a mistake of partnering with people that are like them. Yeah. It's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, because we're just going to butt heads like rams the whole entire time. But usually, they needed me because they didn't understand the business sense as well, or sales or financing, or, just bringing the operation, bringing the whole model of it together. And it's, when you allow each other to kind of stay out of each other's way and do what they need to do, it's fascinating on how things tend to grow. I mean, and, that's what we're working on now is just had a call with our accountant from last month, and he was like, dude, we just got to get your efficiency down about 10% more. He's like, you're going to net 500 grand just on 10%. He's like, He's like, we did it last year. We focused on it. We shot for 9. You ended up hitting 14. Look at your revenue. Yeah. He's like, okay, I think we can do this, this, and this. So let's focus on 10. You're going to get another $500,000 based upon your projections of revenue. Sure. That's the kind of thing now is like you said, if you don't know your KPIs or your numbers, like I was with my office manager today who handles all of our draw structures on builds, and we're predicting profits within 4%, 3% on each sector. That's why I told my partners today, I'm like, you can go look at the folders on all of our jobs and look, if we have 37 draws left for the remainder of the year, we're going to bring in $700,000.
Yeah.
Within 3%.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And it's just, that becomes very tough in those games because people just want to continue upon like, yeah, driving revenue is cool. It's cool to say I hit $20 million this year, but like, yeah, your profit percentage is probably 2%.
Yeah, right.
So that's where we've kind of been looking at in business of like, what's the tipping point to us of, I don't want to be a company that does $100 million at 1%.
Right.
Like, I don't want to do that.
Yes.
We looked around at like, okay, do we get into development? Do we get into production building? Do we get into this? Do we get into that? And I'm like, okay, why would I want to work more for less?
Yeah.
You're big into personal development. I know you're in a lot of masterminds. You've always been in a lot of masterminds. I've done some masterminds. Where are you at?
Yeah, it's a great question because, you hear these guys talk and they talk about revenue, but then they also talk about profit. And there's plenty of guys in Pennsylvania. Like people think like, oh, these are guys out in LA.
Only people that make money are in California.
No. I'm talking about in Pennsylvania, not necessarily Pittsburgh, but in Pennsylvania, that are doing $10 million a year in wholesale fees at 35% profit. That's not unusual. And so in order to do that, they've had to expand into multiple counties. And so that would be the next logical step for us would be to say, okay, we're going to grow, we're going to increase marketing, we're going to bring on more staff. But I find myself saying with the way my rental portfolio is set up and where we're at from a revenue perspective, to your point, is that something I want to take on? Because the process of going from 5 million to 10 million takes your profit back significantly before you can get it back where you want it. So do I want to, at this phase of my life, I'm almost 50 years old, I've got 3 kids, do I want to go through that process? Conversely, I can't take my foot off the gas. You start coasting, you're fucking going downhill. So there's such a trade-off there where it's like, what is the next move? For us, we've dabbled in a handful of things and we're trying to figure out what that looks like, but we're going to continue growing responsibly. We still think we can go deeper here. Everybody thinks they're the big dog in their market, but when you actually employ a company to come in that looks at all of the deals that sold in Allegheny County, for example, just pull one county. Here's all the deals that sold in Allegheny County at a number that you would have bought them for, your market share is minuscule.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you think you're crushing it, and maybe relative to your competition, you have the largest market share. But relative to all of the off-market deals, you're just a drop in the bucket. So you can go way, way, way deeper in your own market before you start going wide. And I see so many young entrepreneurs, especially wholesalers, that are like, well, I'm doing $100,000 a year here. I think I better go to another market. You can do 500 here. You don't need to keep going into other markets. And so I think for us, because this is where I want my rental portfolio, and I'm not particularly interested in traveling to another city and building out an office. For us, we're going to continue to go deeper here. And then to your point, I have other businesses that I'm pursuing that I enjoy. So I'm fulfilled.
Yeah, I've taken a lot. Listen, man, I follow a lot of what you do from behind the scenes, and I'm the same way. So we just to your point, I have no desire to go build more houses for less money.
Right.
I have no desire to build a 36,000 a year home building company. I don't want to go nationwide. I have no desire to do any of that. We ran into the original owner of Eddie Homes. We were buying some fencing, just kind of bumped into him. So we started talking. We're like, hey, man, he's like, I started to hear about you guys, and he was like, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't move from where you are, because eventually here soon, you're going to be the only fish in the pond. He was like, because guys are getting out of what you do because it's difficult. So when I started looking at our business, when we first got into the industry, I was like, okay, how do I break in? I'm like, well, I'm the last guy. that everybody comes and sees. Well, what's that leave me up to? I hear all the complaints from all the people who went around to all the other people.
Yeah.
So I just reverse engineered and did everything they didn't do. And I'm like, well, if I can grab 4 builds from him and 3 builds from him and 2 builds from him, it's not, they're not losing market share, but it's going to gain me what I need to do. So we just started doing full service turnkey build on your own lot services, which no one else offers really other than me. That builds it on scale. And then when you look at scale, it's not even really that scale. I build 25 houses a year. Like it's not impossible, but it's enough to keep us going. It sustains a staff of 20. It pays for a good living for us. And we've been able to, do what we do. And that's what I would rather do. I would rather, I tell people all the time, like, I think custom's a loose word thrown around. Where we win is we build the ordinary home for the ordinary person the exact way they want it. When no one else won't. So it's like,
found your niche.
Found our niche, stayed in it, and we kicked around development. I'm like, well, now with DR Horton coming in, who's in town now, who's battling with Ryan. So you have the top 2. You have number 1 in the world, number 3 in the world going head to head, and you're talking about $50 and $60 billion companies. I'm out. I'm out. I'll let you guys have turf war, and I'll just come over here and play my little game for $10 million a year and live just fine. But again, to your point, it comes down to, I'd rather spend time with my family. I really would. I have, with my rental portfolio and other things I have going on, I don't need to go kill myself and speak on stages and do all this stuff. And I thought, we did at one point. And I just like falling back and spending time with my kids because I know that I only have 10 more summers. I know that I only have 11 more summers. That means more to me than going chasing millions and millions of dollars. And that was what we talked about early on with you. And your mindset shifted heavy when you had kids. And we talked about that a lot. So I always thought about that in the back of my head. And I'm like, and the same thing to your point, I said that to my partners today because we're like, well, what's our next play? Because we're thinking about shifting gears a little bit. And we're like, all right, well, what's the next level? Well, my partner Ryan came from Alabama, Texas, Atlanta, and built 300-400 unit multi-unit buildings. So it's like, well, that's now the, do we look into that? Do we go, after 100 unit multi-building? Because where do we win? It's not remodeling, it's new construction. Now it's finding, the relationships on the development side to build 100 unit multi-building. I love the single family. I'm like you. I like single family because I can sell it on the end consumer for the top dollar. But again, it's if you can make on the multi, you can make it on the construction side, the refinance side, and the sell side. So it's appealing. So that's something we're kind of looking into now. Of like, do we build 100 unit multi building towards Washington and that area that's building up and doing all this stuff? And
there was a time for me where I think like you, like all of us when we're young, and I first got into this business, I really thought like, all right, I'm planning to change the city skyline. Like, I'm going to be Grant Cardone. I'm going to do all this shit. And then you get to a point with the business, especially when you have a family, where I start looking around and I'm like, man, life is pretty good. Like, I recognize how blessed I am. Everybody's happy. Everybody's healthy. We're in a really good spot. And I could probably strain and stress this family unit a little more and grow in the name of more money. But why? Like, I mean, where I'm at. I feel really, really good about where I'm at. And it doesn't mean that you're satisfied. It's just, it's redefining what defines success for you. For me, for so long, success was just going to be how much money I made. That was going to be what defined me as a man. And at some point, you just realize that's one small piece of what defines success for you, especially when you have a supportive partner that's encouraging you to be your best man, but also telling you, like, don't go and kill yourself for us. Because at some point, I remember we were sitting on the porch at my house in Swickley. We moved out to Swickley, and I was traveling, and I was working on this multifamily deal that I was wholesaling, and it was in Columbus, Georgia, and it was a huge deal. And it was taking up a crazy amount of time away from my primary business at a time when I didn't really have as much help as I should. And ultimately, it was my best deal. It was very lucrative. But I was traveling every Monday morning or Sunday night and coming back every Friday. And this was happening week after week after week as I worked on this deal. And I had already closed on it, and I was trying to find a buyer and get the property ready. It was a big multifamily, get it ready for sale. And I came back, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, stressed out. I'm on the porch with my wife, and I don't remember exactly what she said, but something about how the kids were missing me. She was missing me. She was missing, the way things were before the last 3 months. And I said something to the effect of, I'm doing this for you. And she was like, you're not fucking doing this for me. You're doing this for you, dude. Like, you need this. We don't fucking need this. We need you. You need this. And I was like, oh,
it's real shit.
Yeah, like,
real
man,
shit.
she's right.
Because we'll justify it just like that.
Yeah.
I'm doing this for my wife and kids.
Like, you could do anything in the name of that.
Yeah, like my kids are telling me they want me to fucking go.
Yeah. Daddy, go to Georgia and sell this goofy multifamily. So I finished the deal. I saw it through to the finish line. It was a very lucrative deal. Best deal I've ever done times 8.
Yeah.
But at the conclusion of that, I was like, I'm not chasing that shit anymore. Like, it's not worth it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and that was a big thing with all of us as owners, and I said that to us today. I was like, guys, we have all the momentum right now. We have all the momentum. Everybody, what we got going on, we've worked, through integrity. We've done the right thing. If we've had issues, we've fixed them all. There's not one person that can say we've ever left them stranded. There's, like now it's like, I don't want to take our foot off the gas. That's what I'm saying. Like, we need to continue whether we're doing, what we're doing on, but let's continue to go hard, build this up. And if you want to, I was like, guys, I want to build your futures. I want to build your retirement. I want to build the team's retirement, because I think, again, too, when it comes from culture, I've heard in a lot of people's businesses, even people we know and some people in the industry, like, that have had 200% turnover this year.
Yeah.
I've had 2% turnover in 5 fucking years.
Yeah. Still got the same staff.
I have guys, and even on my remodeling team, I've had since the first job I've ever done.
Yeah.
Ever done.
Yeah.
Same office manager, moved up our admin to selections coordinator, new administrator,
Yep.
Project managers have all been here for years and years.
Yeah.
And it's just, I want to take care of them people.
Yeah.
Like, I want to take care of them more than
And people are so short-sighted. They think that paying more is ultimately going to cost their business more money, when in actuality, starting over with someone else. Like, if one of my acquisition reps or my lead managers left right now, and I hired somebody who ultimately was making a little less, the amount of money that it would cost me in training and just getting ramped up, you're so much better off. And I do run into this with my wife, because my wife is the finance person. She'll say, okay, this was a $20,000 deal, but, by the time we paid for this and that and this and that, the dye test, it was $19,500. And at $20,000, they get a bump in their commission. I'm like, give them the $20,000. She's like, are you sure? Like, it's only $19,400, and I'm give them the 20. Well, she's done that so many times, and sometimes it's much bigger numbers at stake, or it'll be like, hey, the agent told me what their commission was, but then they told me after that they gave them a home warranty, and so we pay our agent's commission based on our spread. Yep. Everybody's paid on our spread, and so now that I know that she gave them a home warranty, or he gave them a home warranty, our spread dropped down. That dropped down their commission by $750. Just pay it.
Yeah.
Just pay it every fucking time. Just pay it. And to her, she loves our team, but as a numbers person, she's like, you're just pissing away money. No. This is saving us headaches.
That's the problem with the corporate fucking structure.
Yeah.
When you get into the big companies, they don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
You're gone.
Yeah.
And that's, so do you see any scare of the big companies with the talk of Blackstone and all the, BlackRock and all these other guys, whatever companies, these big private equity companies now buying up real estate at high prices? And because we've always had the issue of the California buyer wanting to come to Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. The issue is if you don't know our market, you'll get jammed up real quick because it's pocket related. Like, it might be alluring, and the caps on Homewood look awesome until you go to Homewood.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you see any change in direction on what you guys are doing based upon the private, like having to go against private equity? Are you seeing any more?
Well, I don't know. And the reason why is because when everyone else was getting inundated with these e-buyers or iBuyers and all this private equity, we were relatively immune. I mean, I have lots of friends that were selling 80 to 90% of their properties to Open Door, that were selling their properties to Zillow. We've never sold any to any of them. There was a few funds that were buying a couple a month for a few years before the rates took off. But we've been relatively immune to that. If it comes, we'll be prepared, and I think we'll be able to work with them. But as of right now, Pittsburgh, to your point, has kind of been immune from that because you can really get yourself in a bad spot. I mean,
bad spot.
You might think you're buying the comps are even for us.
Yeah,
I'm on the MLS and I'm looking. It's 0.1 miles away, and the ARVs are 350. But here in Marshall Shadeland, they're 200. And if you didn't know any better, you might not realize that.
Oh, it's even in the high. Yeah, I mean, the higher end neighborhoods are just as confusing. I mean, there's certain pockets of Peters that are older, newer, this, that. I mean, you cross this section of this road, it's a different price point, it's a different point, it's a different age bracket, it's a different demographic. If you don't get, and again, it goes back to your diligence and your discipline for market strategy to pay attention to our market. Because if you don't, you just come over here thinking you're going to win. You might have a real battle on your hands.
Yeah, where you would be wise to invest here would be just strictly for cap rate and cash flow. That's where I see the big money making smart moves in Pittsburgh. Because I have a lot of friends that wholesale and flip in Vegas and buy their rentals in Kansas City and Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
that's a wise move. I can see that because you're basing it on the cap rate now. Obviously, you got to come here and see what you're dealing with because you can really get
because construction here is hard as fuck too.
It is.
Like it ain't easy.
Yeah, and when the market was good, when the rates were good, we were able to sell turnkey properties at a premium to those kind of buyers.
Oh yeah.
So we would have properties we could sell darn near full retail because of what kind of rent you could get into them. They're like, well, as long as
because the 1% rule doesn't apply to them.
Yeah, doesn't matter. So it's been good, and I love this market. I think there's a lot of changes that are coming, including regulation, including funds. There's a lot of things coming down the pike. But if you have a business, which is why I love wholesaling, that can generate leads for people that are willing to sell valuable assets below market value, there will always be a business. I don't know what it's going to be. It might be a brokerage. I may literally start the Simmons Realty team and just start listing properties. But there is a market if you know how to generate that many motivated seller leads every month. I'll figure out how to monetize it.
Yeah, and you guys have done a great job at it. I mean, I would imagine, now you're probably one of the larger marketing spenders a month wholesaling here in Pittsburgh, for sure.
I would agree with that.
For sure. And so have you seen, when you talk about the scale too, was there a tip for you going from 2000, when did you start, 2016 or 2015?
Yeah, no, it was later than that.
I know we were kind of doing stuff together around 2017.
Yeah, 16, 17. Yeah.
So did you have a couple years where when you were scaling from 4,000 a month to 100,000 a month roughly, where you set back, it set you back a couple years and you had to really kind of...
No,
because you've always really just progressed.
We came up with the model early on, just did some rough math, and we came up with a model early on that said if we spent 20% of our previous month's revenue on marketing and we stayed ahead of it, we'll always be okay. Well, the first month we did $100,000.
Yep.
So there you go. You got $20,000 to spend in marketing. You do $1 million, 1.2 that year, it's roughly $100,000. You're spending $20,000 a month. And then the following year, when we started to scale up, as it grew, we increased marketing. We're kind of at a point now where if we want to grow, we've got to stretch a little bit. The 20% in and of itself is not going to get it done. We've got to stretch in order to increase revenue because there's just way more competition.
Way more.
It's so different. From
and you
when
see
we
the
were
deals
doing
get passed around.
Yeah.
Everybody's passing them around. Yeah. It's become almost to the point of, like you said, but it's like construction too, though. I mean, there's a lot of bad apples in construction that give everyone a bad name, and every homeowner's now guarded because they think they're going to get ripped off by us. And it's probably the same as it is, now.
It is. And that's why regulation's good for construction.
Yeah.
It gets rid of these jackasses, and it would be good for wholesaling.
Yeah.
I so many people, the smaller guys and gals, they fear all this regulation, and the bigger companies are like, please,
get you out of the fucking way
and regulate. I'm already doing everything you want me to do to a T. You want me to close on it? I'll close on it. You want me to have them sign disclosures? Fine. You want me to have their kids sign paper? We do that now. If you're over the age of 65 years, we ask to have a child's signature on the purchase agreement with you.
Wow.
Now, 65 is young. I'm 50.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people are like, I'm not having my daughter sign. This is ridiculous. And they can sign something that declines it. But the point is, we're pushing for over disclose. And regulation would only work in our favor.
Because you will play the long-term game then.
Yeah.
And then it's going to eliminate all the bottom bullshit
Yep.
and stop, the passing shit to shit
Yep.
and trying to do that whole game and everything that kind of comes with it. And I agree with you. I've said it 100 times. I mean, what's crazy about Pennsylvania and as blue as we are and all the other stuff that we have regulate, $50, you're a fucking contractor.
Yeah.
That's it. And you can build houses. That
Yeah.
is fucking crazy.
Yeah. It
Crazy.
really is.
Like you $50.
You could ruin someone's life.
Forever.
Yeah.
And then just go bankrupt and do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And that's so, that's why we kind of looked at our business of like, what are we going to go hard on now is because, more competition, less margin. There's so many people in the remodeling space because it is so easy entry and entry level is low.
Yeah.
New construction separates you because most can't do it. And also most aren't willing to take the risk.
Right.
So now we just kind of leverage more of that because we have more, our margins are so much better.
Yeah.
We're not racing to the bottom.
Right.
We ask $1, we give a product that's worth that $1.
Yeah.
And that's the way we look at it. And, but I was going to ask you a bit, from your experience inside these, masterminds and stuff. Now, do you have any good consultants for like a business, for like construction that could come in and look at ours from like a pretty high level?
Yeah.
Because we're at that point where I want to, I have some ideas that I want to run by and get some, because I want to start to really ramp up our next scale.
Yeah.
Because we had, COVID was extremely hard for us.
Yeah.
I mean, we ate shit. We were paying customers $75,000 and giving them keys, and I did it probably 20 times. And we luckily came out the back end, which was reciprocated, and had a great year last year. I mean, phenomenal year. This year looks phenomenal too. Now it's like, okay, we want to really take this thing and invest in the right areas. And it'd be nice to have somebody, because you see these courses, you see this stuff all the time. And I've always kind of dabbled a little bit, but I would love to have somebody who's
there's a couple guys
from you, because you're deep into it, and I've watched your success, and you've always invested back in it this way. I would love to any referrals you could give me on a consultant for construction.
I was going to say that it's obvious why construction is so attractive to a lot of the guys that start where I start, is you kind of get to a point where you're looking for something a little more scalable, because there's a limit on my business in terms of if I just want to stay local on revenue. And there's several guys in my mastermind that started off with real estate investing, flipping houses, and have
And that was me.
Yeah.
I did that before I had a construction company.
Yeah. And graduated to new home building and all kinds of stuff. And there's some huge guys in my mastermind that are extremely generous with their time. And so, they do consulting. I'll be happy to hook you up.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Because like I said, we're really looking to ramp that side of it up. And I would love to just, now that we understand our numbers, we have some stuff together, I would love to just help somebody kind of put the pieces together correctly. So I'm not just bleeding. I'd rather pay to get to the end a little bit faster and get an education.
I've always believed that. And that's become very popular. What's crazy is back in so I started that 2015, 2016. That wasn't like a popular thing.
No, not at all.
When I listened to Rich Dad, Poor Dad and started down this path, like there just weren't many podcasts. There weren't many self-help books. Like it just was different.
Yeah.
And a lot of my colleagues at the time were like, dude, what are you doing? Like 6 months you've been fucking reading books. Like, are you going to do anything?
Yeah.
And then when I finally did, I took off because,
because there's a negative connotation to that, right? They'll be like, oh, you can just keep reading, but there's no action. You're never going to fucking do anything. And they say that's most people.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's definitely truth in that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's just the fear of it or whatnot, but for me, I'm every night. Yeah. I mean, the same as you. Like you told me, you told me your regimen of your time you would get up, the time you'd spend at the gym, the time you would spend at your family. Like I remember these conversations with you where you tell me your regimen. I'm like, that is fucking beast. That dude is dialed in, and that is what exactly to a T that I want to do. And, and I want that standard of living. And it takes a lot out of a person to be consistent. Like I always say, like consistency is what beats everybody.
Yeah.
You might be consistent for a week.
Yeah.
I have employees before that were like, I haven't been late in 2 weeks. I'm like, dude, I haven't been late in fucking 30 years.
Yeah.
Like, what are you fucking mean?
I see it with working out. It's crazy. I'm like I said, I'm almost 50. I've been working out like this since I was 13. So 37 years. And the most I've ever missed is probably 3 or 4 days in a row for broken ribs. But COVID, pneumonia, you name it, it's 4 o'clock. It's part of my life. It's what I do. And I see people all the time that go through these, they sprint instead of, just to your point, staying consistent. I see it all the time where I got to get back into it. And to me, it's become such a part of my life that it's actually, it's a necessity. It's selfish. Like, it's my time, and I know that I need that so that when I walk in the door at 6:30, I'm 100% there to serve my family. Yep. And I see people all the time. They're like, dude, how do you get up at 4 o'clock every day? And there have been times where, for any number of reasons, I'm sick, I had too much to drink, whatever. Yeah, sure. I've slept in. And for me, to get up at 6 o'clock to a child crawling up your legs, as opposed to getting up at 4 o'clock on your own terms and having 2 hours, I'm way, way, way more exhausted at 6 o'clock than I would have been had I gotten up at 4. Yeah. So to me, it's selfish. It's my time, and I think you have to be selfish to serve others.
I agree with you. I get up at 4:30. I go to the gym at 5:30. We have a river house now that we stay at mostly in the summer, and so it's about I love my gym. I love the culture of it. So it's about a 30-minute drive there. Silence. I need that time to myself because my phone's not blowing up. Nobody's grabbing my attention, whether it's my wife or kids or clients or employees or anybody. And I also want to think. I want to think, and I want to think about the next moves and what that next move. When I make this move, what's going to happen if I make that move? What are the recourses of this and that and that? And I need, like you said, it's selfishness, but I need that time. I need that time to myself to be able to plan what's going on around me.
And to me, if you have a family, it has to be in the morning. Yeah. How do dudes, the most busy time at the gym is 5 to 8 p.m.
I can't do it.
How could you have a family? And I mean, I'm not talking shit on anybody, but how could you have 2 or 3 kids at home, a wife that's been either working all day. Or working at home, taking care of your brats, and you get home at 5 o'clock, change your clothes, and go to the gym for an hour? Yeah. I don't know how you do that. To me, if I don't get it in the morning, that's it. I lost my opportunity.
That's me. I can't. And, and that's just, I'm not willing to give that time up later. No. I'm just not.
It's not fair.
No, not at all. Yeah. And I think that mindset leads into the culture of a leader and leads into the culture of, just someone who thinks on a level that's different, you know, and that's what I always kind of looked at is I don't want to think like the rest. I want to think, I tell people I make my decisions based off of 2 things. How is it going to affect the women that I live with, my girls and my wife, and how's it going to affect everyone inside Hemlock? Other than that, I don't fucking care. Yeah, I really don't. We'll figure that. If you're not incorporated with what we have going on, then I don't have the time or energy for it.
No, I agree. I mean, I run mine through a similar filter. I made a decision a while ago. I needed guidance because I was just kind of
me too
wayward, just kind of drifting. And I needed some sort of guardrails. And so for me, I had to literally sit down and physically make a list. And I started to think about people I knew and I respected and all the things they did. And I made a list of, the kind of person I wanted to become. Okay, these are my parameters through which I make a decision. And now it's just, you're no longer making decisions based on how you feel because that's going to lead you astray. Yep. You're making decisions based on who you've decided you are. Run it through that filter and it'll always be the right call.
I 100% agree with that. I mean, there's definitely a group of people that, it's crazy is some of them are the clients that I've actually done business with. So I've done a few jobs and sold a $1 million house to one of our clients and we built her pool house in Moon. And she's a consultant for a big giant company, and that's what she does. Anytime I have a situation inside my business, where I'm thinking about replacing somebody or doing this or doing that, I call her. I'm like, what do you think about this? From an outsider looking in, here's the scenario. Here's what I got going on. What do you think?
Yeah,
shoot it straight to me.
That's great.
Because a lot of people, again, success is whatever you name it, but whenever you grow your business, you're viewed differently. Yep. And now people will love to tell you what you want to hear, not exactly what you need to hear. Sure. And I'm in a position where I need to be told what I I need to hear.
Right.
Like, you telling me what I want to hear doesn't do shit other
Right.
than me leading down the road where I'm going to be disappointed. Like, I don't fucking need that.
Yep.
I'm okay with like bad things. Like, I'm all right with it not being in my favor. You know, I almost like that because now I can start playing the Rubik's Cube of how do I fix it? You know, and that's what I really found in my role is I've always loved sales. I've loved that stuff. I mean, I've learned a ton from you even doing it over the years, but I've also found that I like just solving the problems inside of each department. Like, I don't necessarily like putting operations together, but I like seeing the inefficiencies and how I can think about it, you know, just playing that just a little bit.
Yeah,
you know?
That's definitely not my strength.
Yeah.
I needed someone to do that. I can drive revenue all day, but I just leave a mess in my wake, and I needed someone to come in and clean it up. My wife and my COO are those people.
Yeah, and that's kind of the next. We were talking about that today with C-suites and all that other stuff. Is like at some point we're going to need that position because you know the revenue just gets to a certain point of like I'm going to either get myself in tax problems. I'm definitely leaving money on the table with vendors and subs. I know that it's inefficiencies, and that's where it gets to of, you know, are you driving? And we're trying to even figure out what we want to do with marketing because we just started spending a little bit of marketing this year. And I mean, we did almost 10 million in revenue. We probably only spent, I don't know, 30 grand in marketing.
Yeah, crazy.
You know, like
the problem is for people like us is when you're trying to make a hire that doesn't have an immediate impact on revenue, it's like, well, I could hire a CFO and I guess he or she are going to save me some money, but I got to pay them 6 figures. And are they really going to make that back year one? Or I got to hire a marketing manager. Is he or she really going to generate enough revenue to offset their salary? Whereas I know if I hire someone in acquisitions, I know if I spend money on marketing, I know if I hire another leads manager to do follow-up, there's going to be a direct hit to my bottom line. And it's so much easier to make those hires. But it's when you graduate to a point where you can say, okay, this may be a small step backwards for 6 months, a year, while this person gets their feet underneath them. But in the long term, the amount of money they're going to save me way exceeds just bringing in someone else who's going to make me.
And those are the upper level discussions because I think again it comes back to a lot of people in business goes back to what you said about the Porsche. Like they make a little bit of money, they buy a fucking Rolex. They make a little bit of money, they want to stunt and try and get a Lambo or some other shit or yada yada yada. Like, you know, again, I'm not shitting on anybody for any of that stuff. It's just that those are the things that set you back from building a real business. Like that's what unless you're in the you know, the viewership space, and that's where you make money on ad revenue and all that other shit. That's all it's going to attract you, you know, because if you look at like social media or whatever, you know, I do a lot of calculated, you know, business posts, personal posts, little this, little that. You get all the attention on your kids and your families and stuff like that. Your business, it's cool. Like, you know, you might post some real big thing about some really great knowledge in game. You get 3 fucking likes. Put a house up, you get 300 likes. It's just people follow the shiny things, and that's kind of you know, when you get into business, I looked at that too, and I'm like, all right, I have no will and want for any of the fancy things. I did that in my 20s. I had some of that stuff. I made some mistakes and. Cool, like let's build a real business that allows me to fully do what I need to do and give my attention to who I want to give it to. You know, and that's the way I looked at it.
Completely agree. And I think that's one of the biggest issues facing young entrepreneurs now is all of their examples. They're not guys like us that have actually done it. They're the folks on social media. And so I feel so bad for a lot of these young men because I have a coaching program where I don't charge these guys, but they're all fathers. They're all entrepreneurs, and I have to reprogram them on what real business is because they're so blinded by social media and by gurus and by influencers that they've really lost track of what building a real business is.
The guru and influencer space is fascinating because it's you know what it is kind of is it's just you make more money telling people what to do than doing,
and it's a real business.
Fucking wild! It's a real business.
Like it's frustrating because it's like it's bullshit.
It is bullshit.
It's all built on lies. But in and of itself, that education is real money.
Real money.
And these dudes are making way more than the people that are actually
100%. 100%. So I know whenever you first started in the acquisition, so now you have everything. You have every spot filled. You're sitting at the top of the mountain looking down.
Yeah.
So you have, how many acquisitions guys you got now?
Yeah, so,
ladies and guys.
Yeah, so we have 3 acquisition reps full-time. Well, we have 4. 3 are like what I would call acquisition reps. One's junior acquisitions. So they're just doing phone appointments. Yep. So out of those 10 calls that we may get, 5.5 or so are in person, but we're still trying to schedule everyone for a phone appointment. So if we look at it and we're like, hey, for any number of reasons, it doesn't make sense for us to go to this house, or they're just not willing to have us out, we still schedule a phone appointment. So we got to get them on the phone with an acquisition rep. The junior acquisition is going to do that. So you have 4 there. Then you have 3 leads managers that are working full-time scheduling appointments and doing follow-up.
And do they do the qualification before it gets to the?
Yes.
Okay.
So all the acquisition reps do at this point is go on appointments.
Gotcha.
They do some follow-up, what we call hot follow-up, which would be anything that's like a couple weeks old. But beyond that, even if it's 3-4 weeks old, it's going back to leads management and they're going to work it. So acquisitions at this point, I mean, it's a dream job. Like what we were doing was, I'm sure you were doing some transaction coordination, some dispositions. Yeah. Those days are gone. Like everyone's specialized. You have people that literally, for me, if I didn't own this company, I would want to work here because you come in.
Thought about it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
I was like, I come in. Something that takes me on. Worst case, man.
Jesus. I mean, it's all virtual. Number one, we have an office, a beautiful office. If you want to come, there, you know, I'm in there and it's a great vibe.
In Swickley?
Yeah. It's a beautiful vibe.
Did you go above your sister's place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have to, but if you want to, it's there. We get together weekly, quarterly, whatever it may be. But if you're an acquisition rep, you log on Monday morning and you have anywhere from 10 to 15 in-person appointments scheduled for you, routed in a way that's very efficient. And these are highly qualified appointments that are excited for you to come out. There's multiple automated touch points before you get there. No getting there and knocking on the door and then being like,
CRM.
Yeah. Getting there and being like, who are you? No, you've received 6 text messages that I was coming. Yep. You've already received a picture of my face and you know that I like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, you know, I have a dog, or like, you knew I was coming. Yeah. So that's what you're making good money, multiple 6 figures, and you're keeping rental properties.
It's crazy.
Where else are you getting that job? So for me, if I decide I want a new rep, I can go down to the Ford dealership and pick off their best sales rep and get him or her to come over.
Follow my process.
Yeah, and we've done it, and it's been proven time and time again from an outside sales perspective. To me, this is one of the best businesses you can be.
100%. Are you doing any sales training with these guys still, or are you kind of sending them, or do you have somebody inside your company working on sales training?
Yeah, so we have both in-house and we bring in some outside sales folks. So through my mastermind, we have 2 different guys in that group that offer sales training. So that's going to be number one is going to be a module you're kind of going through for 12 weeks and then ongoing training there. And then the other one is 2 live calls a week where you're doing Q&A and walking through that. But then additionally, the one thing that I do every single day is we have a 9:00 call where my acquisition manager presents to me all of the deals that they've reviewed and says, here's what we plan on offering, or here's what we offered, and here's why. I give my perspective based on that. And then I choose something every week that I'm going to talk about on how we can improve. And so this week, what we're talking about is speed to offer. You know, we came to find out that because of virtual, if you get a PPC lead, the average time between PPC lead received and contract signed is 1.5 days from lead received to signed contract, because, you know, it's all over the phone. Yep. Now, Pittsburgh, you don't have as much of that, but you still have it. Yeah. We were finding that from lead received to appointment attended, we were almost 4 days. Lead received, appointment attended. Then we were doing very few one-call closes. Yep. Sometimes we weren't even making an offer in the home until they came home and reviewed their numbers, talked with the acquisition manager, talked with me. So we went back and looked, and we had situations where from the time they called in and said, I have a problem here, I need to sell my house, to when we offered a solution, it was a week. Well, shit, by then they've talked to multiple other buyers. They've talked to realtors. They've talked to family members. They've considered fixing it up. They've gone through the whole gamut of other options. So the thing we're focused on this week, and I pick something every week, is I look at our KPIs, I look at what the gold standard is, and I say, okay, how can we fix this? And this week I'm focused on, you've got to know enough when you go into this appointment that you already have a good idea of what the value is, and you can make that in-house offer. And by the way, 9 times out of 10, because all of them have been doing it for at least 3 years, your offer's fine. Rarely do I say, like, dude, what were you thinking here? It rarely happens.
It's preparation. So for me in acquisitions, I got to a point of where I did it tiered on our sheet. So I'd have the little clipboard, and where I didn't like it was we moved into almost like an iPad formulation where we're kind of like doing this thing on everyone. We're not paying attention to the homeowner and listening to the discussion and having that connection. And there was a lot of disconnect that kind of happened. But when I would do options 1, 2, and 3. This amount of repairs I can offer this. This amount of repairs I can offer that. This amount of repairs I can offer this. This is our exit. And I could just again, right then and there. This is where we're going to be. I feel very confident in this. I knew that they would take this deal. I knew that this deal was going to win.
Well, and when you have multiple exit strategies like we do now, you and I used to go into a house and we'd try to come up with the maximum allowable offer.
That was exactly it.
What's the most I could pay and still make this work? Well, when you go into the house with that number in mind, you're typically going to pay the maximum allowable
You're
offer.
100% going to.
What we've gotten to now is what's the lowest acceptable offer, and start there.
So reverse engineer.
And now you're really talking to the person about what do you need to fix your situation, not what does the AC cost, what does the roof cost, just talking about their problem. And then from there, you can figure out, okay, so the least that would possibly work for you is 125. Well, 125, I only have one exit solution, and that is we got to list it retail. Oh, you don't like that? You don't want to clean it out? Okay, then we need to reconsider that 125. But you're no longer trying to force them down to 100. If they don't want to sell it for 100, you're not going to, even if you do talk them down, they're not going to be satisfied at the end. Get them to where they're going to be happy for the lowest possible amount and find a solution at that number and offer it. Stop trying to square peg, round hole everything and make it a wholesale deal. They're not all wholesale deals. Enough of them will be. But if you approach it that way, you'll serve more people and you'll feel way better about yourself.
No. I 100% agree with you on all of that. I mean, the game has changed so much since we were doing it early on. And, it's good to hear that, things have changed in the right way. I haven't really done any acquisitions. I mean, in-home construction sales is pretty much the same thing. So, but it's good to see that, there's a lot of, you're setting up for the regulations, you're setting yourself up for the next steps in this business. You've always kind of done that, man. You've always been at the forefront of, whether it's pay structure or this or that, or, the novations or seller finance. And again, I think that's why, the people that we know, at least in the circle of Pittsburgh, look at you as, you are the kind of the godfather of wholesaling. And like the Pittsburgh that really took it to the forefront. Because I think it was something that was kind of overlooked, and people were flipping it wasn't cool. Like flipping was the only cool thing, and now I look at flipping, I'm like, I fell into that. I thought it was sexy too. Me too. That's all I ever did.
I'm going to have like a show following me around.
Yeah, that's what we all.
Terrible idea.
That was the worst idea.
Terrible idea.
Yeah, it was the worst idea. But I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, man, I had a blast.
It's always great to catch up with you and talk business. Like I said, man, you are one of the guys in this industry I think I have the utmost respect for, just because you've always given me the time. You've always had the willingness to talk with me, and it's great to see where you're at, man. I respect you as a father. I respect you as a man. I respect you as a business owner. You're killing it, man. You really are. I appreciate all the referrals you've given us too. It really it means a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone. Hope you got some value.
Thanks.